How have values been infused in you, and how do they continue to guide you throughout your life? Welcome to the Parable Podcast. I'm your host, Danielle Zapchenk, and today I'd love to share with you one of my recent messages from our home church. I was wrapping up a series that we were doing called Home is What You Make It, and I was sharing about how we infuse values. So I hope you enjoy this message wherever it may find you today. So we are wrapping up our series, Home is What You Make It, this week. And whether you are a parent, you have zero interest in kids, that's totally fine. You're single, you're married, you're in a complicated relationship, you have a very supportive family, or maybe you found your chosen family. I hope that you've taken something away from these last couple of weeks and reflect on how you can inspire, instruct, and be intentional with those around you. So today we're going to be talking about infusing values. So when you think of the values that have been infused in you, that continue to guide you throughout life, what comes up for you? Is it hard work, loyalty, looking out for yourself, making as much money as you can, not showing any weakness, following your dreams? There's a lot out there. So how do you even know where to start? For most businesses, they have this guidebook to ensure all of their decisions and their employees' activities comply with their core values. I have worked at many different jobs, from a family-run diner to a high-end restaurant. I was the events coordinator at the Brookfield Zoo. I did promotions and radio where I met my husband. I worked at a nonprofit for adults with disabilities, and there's so many more odd jobs in between. I was also like the mascot outfit for the radio station. That was really fun. Did all of them have a guidebook? No. They probably should have, and you could definitely see a difference in culture. But even without, the values were very present day to day. So before I had my first adult job, I was a communications major, and my senior year of college, my professor called me and she said, "Hey, this business reached out, and I think you would be a great fit for what they're looking for. They're having a gathering tonight, and if you wanted to go check it out." And I was like, okay, like I have plans, but I also wanted a job after college. And so I put on my best professional outfit. I went there, and there was like a room with a whole bunch of different candidates, and so I was like, okay, like I'm gonna show up tonight. And so the guy gets up and does his presentation, and it becomes increasingly clear to me that there are plants in the audience, and this is now for a multi-level marketing scheme. And I just was like, no, this is so awkward. And so the guy finishes, and he comes over to me, and he has this big, like, cheesy smile, and I value authenticity, and I could just like feel it like dripping off of him, like the fakeness. It was gross. And he's like, "So are you in?" And I'm like, "Oh," because at the same time, I struggle with letting people down. I don't even know this guy. But luckily, authenticity won out, and I said, "No, I don't think like this is the best fit for me." And that smile dropped immediately, and he pointed me to the door, and he went on to the next person. He was a real winner. So I'd like to know, when I was thinking about that story, like what triggered in me that night to know what to value. Well, one place it starts is our home, but I really believe it goes beyond those four walls. Our values can contribute to a healthy society, but where's like the memo on all of these values? Is there like a list when we were in school that we get to choose from? And I'm sure either you are this person, or you've met people that say, like, I have a strong set of values. But I do wonder, like, have they spent any time like really figuring them out? Even writing this, I felt like, I think I have values, right? So how did they get here? What if I don't like them? Do they stick with you the rest of your life? So if we're looking for a guidebook to get us started, the Bible is a great place to start. In verse 15 of Colossians 3, it says, "Let the word of Christ, the message, have run of the house. Give it plenty of room in your life." The Bible is a place where we can read and understand God and his values for us. His word provides us the direction to guide our thoughts, our behaviors, and our decision making. But before we just add in like all these different guides, how did your current values begin? Well, I believe it's rooted in our childhood, the people who raised us, the friendships that we surrounded ourselves, whether by choice or not. We became infused subconsciously and consciously with values. And so when I hear that word infuse, it makes me think of tea. Now, I do have a high preference for coffee, but I do love to try almost anything. And to extract the flavor, you need to introduce a substance, aka the tea bag, into something like the water, and that becomes infused. So when my brother comes to town for Christmas, we like to go out to different restaurants with him. And so one time we grabbed some dim sum. We've been there a few times. And the place that we go, they bring this like beautiful pot of loose leaf tea to the table. And it just really enhances the overall experience of the meal. And I think the same goes for us too with our values. It can be this positive infusion where there's this beautiful flavor that permeates you, and it makes you feel like warm and you're changed for the better. Like how amazing it is to have this gentleness and integrity and humility just being embedded into the environment we grew up in. But I also recognize there is the opposite, right? Before we left filled on bao buns, I saw that there was a little tea left in the teapot, and I really didn't want to waste it. So the thing is, after so much time has happened of infusion, there is this point for the tea, the tannins come out, and it becomes too much. It's the kind of infusion that can breed bitterness and resentment and dependency, impulsiveness, the not so good things. And then because of that, it becomes infused into our daily lives, the things that we value. Our values can be rooted positively or negatively, and it's good to know what values have been infused in you that are still continuing to guide you throughout life. Because even if you know that you've had some not so great values growing up, they can easily show up subconsciously right now. So a few ways you can do this is one is reflecting on what were the things that your parents or your guardians talked about. What was the conversation like around the dinner table? Or maybe there were things that were never talked about at all. Was there compassion and kindness in your conversations? Or do you remember comments that were dismissive, cruel, and insensitive? Also, the second thing is like, what encouragement or maybe limitations did families or adults put on you? When I was a sophomore in high school, I was in English class, and the teacher put out like all these different short stories. We had to pick one and then write a paper on it. And I saw this one short story. It was called The Monkey's Paw. Did anyone ever read that? But she said the only caveat of the project was you cannot utilize a story that you've already read through. So we had read that one in freshman year, but I'm like, I feel like that's just a suggestion, right? And so I was like, I'm going to go from a different slant. It's going to be fine. And so I wrote a beautiful paper. I handed it in. And later that week, we had off of school that Friday. But our teachers still were in session. And my teacher, I guess she was in line to the copier. And here was my freshman English teacher printing out The Monkey's Paw. And she's like, oh, is Danielle Dirks, was she in your class last year? And he's like, yeah, she was. So guess who got a call from their teacher that afternoon? And that is like so nerve-wracking to have your teacher call you at your house. Like, oh. And I just remember like feeling like I knew the second she called like what it was. And so she had me and my dad come to school, and we had to talk about it. And I just like tried to shove it off, and I failed that paper, and that was like the worst. It was so bad, but I am thankful for Miss Cerna because she helped me understand my values, to be humble, to be honest, to have integrity, and it sucked. But I'm here. I graduated. Congrats. Okay. The third is maybe if you have your parents, if they're still alive, or family members, just ask what their perspective was. about these values. We were with my mom and dad last weekend, and they didn't start out with day one, here's the values that we're going to instill into our kids. But over time, they thought okay, Christian moral values, self-reliance, and hardworking. And if you look at my brother and myself, I feel that is kind of evident in our lives. So I recognize that this can be a positive experience, but it can also bring up some tough memories. But the goal is to know where we started so that we can grow and understand our values where we are now. And depending on what you discover, you can use that to your advantage. Now, if you're wondering, darn, what values have been infused in me that continue to guide me throughout life? Are they so stuck in my personality that they're just going to stay the same? And the good news is you have a choice of what becomes infused in you. 2 Corinthians 5:17 says, anyone who belongs to Christ has become a new person. The old life is gone, a new life has begun. Our values and who we are can begin afresh. So thank God. Whether you may be new to this whole relationship with God or you've known Jesus for many years, it still amazes me that the creator of the universe, the author and the perfecter of our faith, gives us the option to choose whether or not to follow him or not. What audacity, right? Jesus said in Luke 9:23, if anyone would come after me, let him deny himself and take up his cross and follow me. When moms all over the world say, if your friends jump off a bridge, are you going to jump too, right? Essentially, what they're asking is, are you making a choice to follow or not? But even if you choose not to follow him, the beautiful thing is, guess what? He still chose you first. He chose you first, since you were all set apart by God and made holy and dearly loved. As we go through this list of values that I mentioned earlier in service in Colossians, please listen to this again, but not as a judgment on yourself. I want you to be kind, okay? And we're not always going to be these things. We're human, but think of this as an amazing closet, filled with everything, your whole personal style, okay? Maybe it has some killer concert tees, some amazing sneakers that only a couple people can get. If clothes don't resonate with you, okay, just think of what is that quirky thing that you just love. Is it antique pocket watches? Is it coffee mugs? I grew up in Wisconsin, so I just imagine so many cheeses, okay? I still think about this one Manchego cheese that had these little salty bits in it a couple Christmases ago. You get the idea. There is so much available to us. He is the ideal concierge of values who's just waiting to tell you what he has in store for you today. So here it is. It says, dress in the wardrobe God picked out for you. Compassion, kindness, humility, quiet strength, discipline. Be even-tempered, content with second place, quick to forgive an offense. Forgive as quickly and completely as the Master forgave you. And regardless of what else you put on, wear love. It is your basic, all-purpose garment. Never be without it. Let the peace of Christ keep in you in tune with each other, in step with each other. None of this going off and doing your own thing, and cultivate thankfulness. When you hear it like that, I imagine what it's like to be just wrapped up in God's embrace. How beautiful and special and kind. There's nothing evil in that at all. It's just so sweet. So now we could have a message on literally every one of these qualities, but I just want to put up for my visual learners to see the values and then what the unhealthy side of it looks like. So maybe you can see, okay, well, that was Monday, and for sure that was Thursday. You just go back and forth and you kind of look at, okay, here's the opposite, because again, we're human. We're going to see those pieces go back and forth. So what is one of these that stand out to you? Is there a value in this list that you usually admire in someone else? Is there one that you don't want to admit that you have in your life? That is a really good place to start. Many of these values on the left side are easy to live out when life is good, right? When everyone's happy, the garbage is taken out, and like the bills are paid. Like this is easy to live on that left side. But when any stress or hardship come on and sneaking around the corner, these unhealthy opposites rear their ugly heads. So I'll go as an example. So that self-reliance that my parents instilled in me is very good, is really good. But when I'm in a state of unhealth, anxiousness, I'm worried about something, I move into this control side. I want what I want right now. This is exactly how it should be done. And really, there's no other way, right? I'm going to rely on myself rather than choosing to cling to God for help and guidance. See the difference of like the healthy and unhealthy side of self-reliance there. When you look on the right side, it's really depressing, right? This side doesn't get to experience the sustaining joy of being known and set apart from God. If this unhealthy side resonates with you more, there's still time to make a choice. This is something that you don't have to do alone. You have a God who desires to cheer for you on the sidelines over and over again. And you can also break free from those generational values, the things that other people put on you. You don't have to continue to be hurt by that, or hurt others. You can continue down this road, but just know that, hey, God is ready to infuse life into you. And if you make a choice to do so, we have the opportunity each day to extract God's qualities and infuse them into who we are, and then introduce that kind of love to everyone we meet. So that's the challenge of like just looking at one of those, like what is one thing on the left, not the right, one thing on the left that I want to be a part of my life this week. So now that we have a good start on values that have been infused within us, how can they continue to guide you throughout your life? So it says, let the word of Christ, the message, have run of the house. Give it plenty of room in your life. Instruct and direct one another using good common sense. And sing your hearts out to God. Let every detail in your life, words, actions, whatever, be done in the name of the Master Jesus, thanking God the Father every step of the way. Again, we are not striving for perfection. He is the only one that is ever going to be perfect. And like it says in the verse, let every detail of your life, every little detail, your words, your actions, whatever you do, be done in the name of Jesus. A couple years ago, my daughter Edie, we were having a conversation, and I'm pretty sure that she was frustrated and overwhelmed, and she just like turned to me and she's just like, I can't help it that you're perfect all the time. And I was like, okay, all right. But I realized in that moment that I wasn't sharing with her and my son Reed enough about my failures, when I was scared, when my anxiety got the best of me, when I thought I wasn't good enough. At her young age, she spoke truth in me to help me have an understanding, a better understanding of my values. So before we start imparting any values onto anyone else, and the people in our life, they really need to be able to see how we are living those values out first. Greg said this word last week. It was called life-orienting. And I think that's what this really is how we want our families and our friends. Like, what are we orienting our life around and that others see in us? And that provides an opportunity to share then, because they see it present. So what are the values the Zapchenks live by? Again, this is for us. You guys can do you, okay? And honestly, every one of the values that was in that passage, like we totally believe that. And we really didn't spend time talking about this. This is just like a natural part of conversation over the course of our marriage. So there's no document that we abide by. If that's you, go ahead. You go right for it. So here were the top things that came up for Eric. His were faith, respect, honesty, integrity, and responsibility. All well, I completely agree with all of those. And for mine was love God, love others, communications, grace, and presence. And I had quite a few initially, I had quite a bit. But Eric helped me to see that some of my values were actually more tactics than overall strategy. And what I mean by that is when I say love God, love others, how do I deepen my relationship with God and point others to Him? For communication, I really love listening. Curiosity is a huge thing for me. For grace, kindness, how do we be kind to other people in our life? And for presence, I love intentionality, I love laughter, joy, fun, adventure. I think all of that can be a part of presence. So when you spend time figuring out what yours are, there's these umbrella categories that pop up. So when I look at these, I can really see both of our personalities in each of them. And it was just interesting to notice what stood out to him versus myself. And we completely agree with both lists. Since I value communication and I'm a verbal processor, we talk a lot in our home, and we're always asking Edie and Reed about how did that make you feel? And I am an open book, and I want them to feel comfortable and able to share with us anything they want, even if it makes me very uncomfortable. And the reason I do that is because I'm also talking to their future self. I know that sounds super weird, but I know our kids are 12 and 15, and we're really in this coaching phase of parenting, like Scott and Lindsay mentioned the other week, is we're just asking those questions, if there's a challenge at school, there's drama in friendships, or we're figuring out what dating means. We give them examples of what if? How does this look? When we look at the lens of what we value, when we look at God and grace and integrity, what happens next? So we're helping our kids understand, how do we make those connections for the future as well. Our kids get to soak in these values for only so long. And we hope that they get infused in them, but ultimately, kids are their own person. We're all our own people. And so one day, they're going to choose their own values to live by and possibly even instill in us and allow us to continue to grow in our values that we didn't even realize. Some of you may know the song Teach Your Children. It was written by Graham Nash in 1968, but it became highly popular in 1970 with Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young. Now, I wasn't born yet. But I was well-versed with music from the 60s and 70s because that's what my parents played in the car all the time. But this song came out at a time where there was the Vietnam War, the assassination of Martin Luther King Jr., JFK, there was social unrest, and there were so many protests that had increased. And Nash said, I wrote Teach Your Children because we have much to teach them. And conversely, I believe we as parents have much to learn from them as well. Whether this is your children, your family, your friends, I think we really can learn a lot from each other. People can see the weakness in us that we don't even see. Are we valuing being right over admitting when we're wrong? It helps us understand if some of our values have shifted and people can say hey, I think that's out of alignment with what God's truth is. We can learn a lot from asking others about what they see in us, because those little changes over time and helping us better understand our value are going to be monumental for future generations. So some thoughts to take with you today, to discover what values have been infused in you and continue to guide you. Number one is ask the why. What are my values? Looking at the past and currently, and maybe think about where you'd like to be in the future. It's important to ask yourself for any relationship, how do we lead our life? And if you are in a two-parent household or if you're co-parenting, I know that this can be a struggle sometimes, but it's helpful as best as you can to be on the same page, because there's the mixed signals that can be confusing. Just bring that to God too in prayer of just God, help me to understand the values in my life. Number two, are my values present currently? We all have relationships, and before we can knock anyone else's values or impart them on anyone else, we have to look at ourselves. Having kids, or specifically teenagers, okay, or just a handful of honest people, they are brutally honest with you. And it just allows you to to have these people help you make course corrections. So please start small. We're not going to just compile the entire list today. Just be gentle with yourself. Pick one thing that can just be as simple as how do we react when we drop into this unhealthy side? And you get the choice. Do you choose to stay unhealthy, or do you apologize and redirect? And third is when you're okay, there's a lot going on here, Danielle, so many values. The good news is grace is going to fill in the gaps. We are going to be imperfect. And the good news is he's going to fill it in where we need him most. The last verse says, thanking God every step of the way. Thank him for where you were, where you are now, where God is going to take you. There's so much goodness there. The church in Colossae had so many different religion options to pick from when this church got this letter from Paul. And a lot of people were just you know what? We're just going to throw in Jesus. It can just be an add-on to everything else. But Paul wrote this letter to them to encourage them that Jesus is not an add-on. Jesus is everything. When the love of God has been infused in you, he is going to continue to guide you throughout life. If home is what you make it, the greatest value, the greatest one that you'll ever have for yourself is having a relationship with Jesus. It is going to be your greatest return on investment. If you hear nothing else today, my hope for you, this church, for our marriages, for our relationships, our kids, our life, that's the legacy I want to lead, a life of love because of Jesus and what he's done on the cross for us. That's the value right there. Jesus loves us so much that he chose you. He wants a relationship with you. And like the verse said, let every detail in your life be done in the name of Jesus. Regardless of what else you put on, wear love. It's your basic all-purpose garment. When you don't know what else to do, choose love. All of our values flow out of that space. So let God have the run of your entire home and give it plenty of room in your lives. Jesus' way teaches us so well and provides us with more value than we could possibly imagine. I really hope you enjoyed that message. I had so much fun writing it. I know it was one of my favorites from this whole year. Plus, if you are interested in seeing the live video, I'll put it in the notes. You don't want to miss the version of Teach Your Children. It was absolutely phenomenal. Here are 2 reflection questions from our message today. Number 1, reflect on what the things were that your parents or guardians talked about as you grew up. And number 2, what is one value that stood out to you from Colossians 3:12 through 15 that you would like to be more aware of this week in yourself? Just as a reminder, just go ahead and take my listener survey. There is a link in the show notes. And by doing so, I'm going to give you back 10 basic tips to enhance your conversations and to be able to listen really well. Next week, we are back to our regularly scheduled parable episodes with my friend Ashley Forsberg with her amazing parable story. To connect with me, simply visit DanielleZapchenk.com for details. That's it for today, and I appreciate you spending time with me. Remember, the greatest value is a relationship with Jesus. We'll see you back again next week on the Parable Podcast.